Well, I'm as shocked as you guys are. Good morning, everybody. Trucker Todd here. Time for another video. Convoy is going out. As a matter of fact, I think they're already out. This is a company that was backed by Jeff Bezos. We're going to talk all about it. Give me a thumbs up. Share this video on your social media platforms. And make sure you're still subscribed. Let's cue up the music and jump right in. Here we go.
This is why I do this, why I'm out here, why I keep that hammer down. Flying by these road signs with home on my mind, with these wheels turning round. For my family and for my kids, for this life I wanna live. And this is why I do this.
Alrighty, we're back, and this video is scary looking. It looks like a Halloween video, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Convoy. A lot of you use them for freight brokerage, things like that. Jeff Bezos was heavily involved with them. Let me read you this GeekWire article about them. It says, Convoy collapse. Read the CEO's memo detailing sudden shutdown of Seattle trucking startup. Now, GeekWire's in-depth startup coverage tells the story of the Pacific Northwest entrepreneurial scene. It says that Convoy raised $260 million at a $3.8 billion with a B valuation in just 18 months ago. Now the company is shutting down. Convoy's plan to transform the trucking industry has come to a screeching halt. Yeah, they were transforming it all right. They had some super cheap freights, and a lot of times the loads didn't have a lot of time on them. So it was a lot of hard work for not much money. And this is what I say about the cheap freight thing and things like that, that eventually it's going to catch up with them. You can't keep offering freight at a loss and make money. And it sounds like they were doing it too, but we'll get into the story. I need to not editorialize too much here. The Seattle company is closing its core business and laying off a majority of its workforce. We hoped this day would never come, Convoy CEO Dan Lewis wrote in a memo sent to employees on Thursday morning. The startup sent shockwaves through the Seattle tech ecosystem and broader trucking sector after abruptly shutting down operations on Wednesday. So I guess they shut it down on Wednesday. We all found out about it today. I actually found out about it last night while I was doing my live show. This is confusing because I'm filming this on Thursday night. You guys are seeing it Friday morning. So they shut down Wednesday. We found out Thursday, and now I'm telling you about it on Friday. There, I hope I cleared it up. In the memo, Lewis said the company faced both unprecedented freight market collapse and dramatic monetary tightening. See, people keep saying this. They keep saying it's the worst market we've ever had and all of that. I remember 2008 being pretty bad. And I'm sure of you, some of you old timers can remember some even further back that was this bad. It's bad, but it's definitely not the worst we've ever seen, or at least it doesn't feel that way in my mind. All right, let's see. It says this combination ultimately crushed our progress at the time that it was crushing our logical, strategic acquire. It was the perfect storm, he wrote in the memo, which you can read in full below. We'll read that memo. We'll check it out. Lewis said the company spent the past 4 months assessing all the possible strategic options for the business. However, none of the options ultimately materialized into anything sufficient to keep the company going in its then current form, he wrote. The memo noted potential future strategic options but did not mention an acquisition. Before this week, Convoy had around 500 employees, down from a peak of about 1,500 people. The company raised $260 billion at a $3.8 billion evaluation. So they raised $260 million, but they were valuated at $3.8 billion with a B just 18 months ago. The laid off employees did not receive a severance pay reportedly. That's a little disappointing. But I guess if they don't have it, they can't give it. Convoy certainly faced huge macroeconomic challenges. Freight demand has dipped, that's true. Revenue per truckload is down, that's definitely true. And there's an oversupply of trucking companies, and that's pretty true too. I think that's kind of taking care of itself over time. Avery Weiss, a trucking analysis with FTR Transportation Intelligence, said it's a challenging time for freight brokers because the truck capacity is plentiful. This means shippers can find attractive freight rates with large asset-based carriers versus smaller trucking companies like the ones Convoy targeted. So basically they're saying mega carriers have the advantage right now. Tim Denoyer, Vice President and Senior Analyst of ACT Research, said he's seeing shippers moving freight loads to their privately owned fleets, which hurts the brokerage market. Yeah, I think there's some of that going on too. At the time, digital brokerages such as Convoy were facing a liquidity crunch, according to Craig Fuller, CEO at freight industry news site FreightWaves, which we're all familiar with. I do a lot of stories from there as well. Convoy was the victim of a violent, commoditized industry that is facing one of its deepest recessions in decades and a sudden change in investor appetite from risk to unit economics, Fuller wrote on Wednesday. Convoy developed an Uber-like system that matched truckers with shippers. The company, backed by investors such as Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, bet that its technology would reduce costs and increase utilization compared to traditional brokerages. A former executive told GeekWire that Convoy didn't build enough of a tech advantage. Other brokers either had similar apps or were fast followers and built new functionality. And I don't think that's the problem. I think all of us go to where the rates are. If you've got cheap freight, we skip you and go to another broker. And I think the word got out they had cheap freight and people said thanks but no thanks. Another former employee cited a tension between leadership over how Convoy positioned itself as a tech company or a logistics company. Speaking at a GeekWire event this summer, Lewis said Convoy leaned into tech more heavily as it started to trim expenses. We became even more of a tech company in the last 12 to 18 months, he said. You know what's interesting about this is they leaned into the tech. And where else are they leaning into the tech and trucking? Autonomous trucks. And I think the same thing's going to happen there. It's going to fail. You need manpower. You need people. There's some things, there's some situations a computer can't solve. And I think that's what Convoy found out through all of this. Convoy said in April 2022 that it expected to surpass $1 billion in annual revenue, then the layoffs began. The company started trimming headcount in June of that year, just a few months after it raised the massive Series E funding round. Convoy went through another layoff in October 2022. This past February, Convoy cut staff and closed its Atlanta office, which opened in 2019. Another round of layoffs happened in June. So they're at a free fall here. Every 2 or 3 months, they're laying people off. Co-founder Grant Goodell announced that month that he would step down from his position as Chief Experience Officer. I never heard of a Chief Experience Officer, have you? And transition to an advisory role. So he was on his way out then. Other logistics startups such as Flexport and Flexe which grew rapidly during the pandemic, have laid off staff amid the broader market slowdown and lack of available venture capital dollars. Convoy competitors, ranging from traditional brokerages like C.H. Robinson and newer players including Uber Freight, are also struggling amid the shaky market. Reports emerged in August that Convoy was seeking a sale, but not many predicted that this week's collapse was how the company would enter its next or final chapter. Here's his memo. We'll read it real quick and then I'll give you my thoughts. He says, from Dan, regarding business update, all, comma. As you're all aware, over the past few days, we've been taking action to minimize disruptions to shippers and carriers by ensuring that all in-transit shipments get to their proper destinations. Thank you to everyone who stayed focused and got it done. As usual, you guys do amazing work. With that action nearing completion, Convoy will be closing down its current core business operations. Some of our team will continue on to handle the wind-up, transition, and future potential strategic options, all of whom have already been spoken with. Today is your last day at the company. We hoped this day would never come. We spent over 4 months exhausting all viable strategic options for the business. However, none of the options ultimately materialized into anything sufficient to keep the company going in its then current form. So what happened? In short, we are in the middle of a massive freight recession and a contraction in the capital markets. This combination ultimately crushed our progress. At the same time, it was crushing our logistical strategic acquire. It was the perfect storm. Convoy's tech-centric approach to trucking created real benefits. It also created the conditions for a truly scalable technology platform and business model that would have yielded real financial gains when market conditions continue. But in the end, market forces were too strong for us to withstand on our own. We moved all business levers possible, but we were running up the down escalator and it kept speeding up. So despite your excellent work on our product and service innovation, extensive revenue driving efforts, and the painful and sweeping cost cuts you have had to endure, it was still not enough to get us into the financial position necessary to withstand the increasing pressures of the industry without the need for outside funding. Along with this unprecedented freight collapse, the dramatic monetary tightening we've seen over the last 18 months has dramatically dampened investment appetite and shrunk flows into an unprofitable late-stage private companies. Add to that, amidst these freight and financial conditions, M&A activity has shrunk substantially, and most logical strategic acquirers of Convoy are also suffering from freight market collapse and making the deal doing that much harder. So it keeps talking about acquire. It keeps sounding like they were hoping somebody would buy them out, and that has fallen through as well. The perfect storm. Following an exhaustive process spanning many, many months, during which we explored all viable strategic options for the business, the result is where we are today. Convoy is closing the doors on his current core business operations and exploring and evaluating strategic options for what might come next. The work you've all done will leave its mark on the freight industry forever. This industry needs to modernize. Shippers want it, carriers want it, and the market wants it. Notice they don't ever mention drivers in none of this. Drivers are always like an afterthought. Have you noticed that? We still believe that this will be the future for the industry. And as I just shared on our call, I think the world of you. Over the past few months, I experienced some of the highest highs and the lowest lows in business, but throughout it, I remained motivated because of the incredible people that who Convoy gave the inspiration every day. You guys rock. Truck yeah, Dan. All right, so let's talk about this a second. I think there's more of this to come. These lowball freight brokerage companies have just got to, I mean, they've got to realize what they're doing is killing us all. Here they are with this innovative technology that is supposed to change the market, but they didn't get the most important ingredient they needed in their cake mix, was the drivers, because their rates were so cheap. You notice they mentioned the shippers, the receivers, the freight brokers, all of that, but they don't mention the drivers. And I think that's where they have the problems. It's, these salespeople are going out and they're booking the freight, but they're not booking it at a freight where anybody's going to haul it. And they're going, well, that's all we can get. Where if they would do what they need to do is stick together and go, hey, nobody's going to pull your freight for 75 cents a mile. And when the guy says, well, I'll just call the next company, call them. They're not going to pull your stuff for 75 cents a mile either. I mean, this is the point where you got to have a little backbone. And I keep hearing drivers say, well, I don't pull cheap freight unless, and as long as there's an unless in there, it never works out. Now, the question is, well, what is cheap freight? And that answer is different for every one of you. Hey, if you can make a profit at 75 cents a mile, then it's not cheap freight for you. Do it. But most of you can't. Most of you, it's going to cost somewhere between $1 and $1.50 a mile to operate your truck. So if you're pulling freight for under that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. But you're not shooting just yourself in the foot. You're shooting everybody else in the foot as well. So I appreciate the guys that came in my Thursday night video and told me about this. I'm glad we could get this video out. But more importantly, that I saw that on GeekWire. If you guys want to go check that out. And I want to know what you guys think about it. Leave me a comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me what you think. Who's the next company that's going to go under? Where did Convoy get it wrong? Where did I get it wrong? Let me know. I appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Y'all have a great Friday and a super weekend.